Welcome back to the Mostly Accurate Podcast. We talk about anything and everything. Check it out.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Mostly Accurate Podcast. Today we will be brainstorming some things we can talk about and do actively on the podcast.
You might notice that we're in a different location today. We have moved out of the apartment. We now have a studio.
No, we've actually just moved out of my room into my downstairs living room.
I think what I said was accurate.
Sure enough.
His room's actually right over there. Just want them to be able to put together a blueprint of your house.
Mm-hmm. All right, let's jump straight into it. What are a few ideas we have around what we could talk about and what we can do on the podcast? And we'll just say everything that comes to mind and write it down and then talk about them.
Well, I certainly think that our fitness video was one of our better ones, so we could definitely talk about that more. Something we all have a little bit of knowledge on, which is good. Yeah. I think our health video could have been better. I think if we combine the two together, we can definitely get somewhere. So I think those two topics are probably pretty good.
I think if we do fitness and health, in general, those kind of go together.
Right, but
fitness,
trying
health,
to
nutrition.
split them into different videos was I didn't I didn't like the last video.
I didn't like it so much. I think we were just it was an off day, but that's definitely, I'm writing that down. That's definitely something we could go into and explore more.
Certainly.
Yeah.
Do you have anything?
I'm trying to think of stuff all three of us have in common that we could talk about. Probably something related to school, education, financial.
Education,
yeah.
Somewhere around there.
I'm going to put education, and then I'm going to put finances.
Yeah. And we could also talk about different leadership opportunities. I'm trying to think of a word for it, but we have all had roles in leadership before with different organizations. We can definitely talk about that.
I'm going to put that under education.
How it's impactful for the youth, things like that.
And then something we were talking about today at school is that we would think it would be interesting if we were able to sort of do it in a format like this, and then also have an activity that we actively have something to work on. We were throwing out a couple ideas, we could do something like gardening or working on cars, in a shop. Obviously, we're brainstorming. We're just trying to throw out ideas, but we were talking about things like that.
Yes.
I like where you were going with that, but I think the examples that you're coming up with, they're a little too active. I think,
Maybe a Rubik's Cube or something.
Yeah. Because, if, say, we were doing the working on cars in a shop, I feel like that's more of we would be focusing on working on the cars.
Yeah.
We would just show time lapses of us doing that, and then we record little segments of reviewing what we did. I don't really feel like that's kind of where we're wanting to go.
I think that's a different direction entirely. That's what we're trying to do is give our opinions, and that's it is two different things.
It's good, it's just not what we're trying to do.
Yeah.
Interesting, because I think you're right. It's more like making a YouTube video rather than a podcast, but I feel like I like the idea of it. But that's just,
Of course we can discuss it more.
We can discuss it. We can talk about how that would actually happen and how we would do that.
Well, we could also do that stuff just completely separate and then talk about it on the podcast.
Oh, yeah, we could.
Like how we were talking about flipping cars on the way here. We could do that completely separate, but we could record ourselves doing it, set up a camera in the background, have some time lapse that we could show, and then as we talk about it. Right.
So that's a good idea. So should I write flipping cars down, or should I just write down activities that we can do?
Just probably activities.
Write down
mentioning
separate activities.
Yeah,
that's not really a niche though.
Well,
that's just talking about things we do.
Well, I kind of have an idea. That could be a segment though, right? Because we could have a part where we try to tie stuff in that we've done throughout the week, or different activities that we have. We can bring experiences from those into it instead of just talking about we were talking about fitness. I know we talked a little bit about what we did, but instead if we got into fitness and health in general, we could start talking about mental health and how that really impacts the way that you work on yourself, and how having a good mental state and a good system set up to continue working on it is really beneficial. Right, and then you could bring in aspects oh, I do X, Y, and Z. I'm part of the Boy Scouts, or I've participated in these different activities that allowed me to have like a certain sort of discipline, and this is how I learned it. This is why I think it's important. And then like, oh, it affects more than just this. Or we could bring up experiences we've had that are not necessarily as formal as like sitting down and watching the news or reading the newspaper. Where like at fair, when I see public presentations, I've heard people, talk. Like I've watched Morgan talk about bipolar disorder, excuse me. And so there are several things like that where we could bring in from our own personal experience of like knowing somebody who's knowledgeable on the subject and like bringing in things that we've heard about that, or just like things that we've experienced in our own life. And I think that could be really helpful for the podcast.
It could be. I like that. I like what you're talking about there, but what I'm struggling with, like how we could improve, is having a niche, having one topic, one subject we can talk about, and we focus, like we don't talk about anything else.
I feel like, at least out of the ideas that we've come up with so far, you could summarize them all into, I guess, lifestyle.
That's what I was just thinking. But
I think our niche could just be like lifestyle and the perspective of our generation on different aspects of that. We're approaching ages where we're going to start getting jobs. We're going to start entering the car market. We're moving away. We're transitioning to focusing on college, right? I feel like we could really do well in the lifestyle niche.
And I feel like talking about things that other people might be having a problem or a success with, like similarly to the way we are, could be beneficial for our listeners. Because we're not trying to attract necessarily people that are in completely different settings than us. We're trying to, sympathize with and share experiences with people that are in similar scenarios as us in like life areas, because that's the only thing we're really going to be able to do. We can't attract an audience of something, that we've never experienced, never done. So talking about what we know, I feel like is the best way of going about it to get, honest, like real answers and honest, real discussions like about things where we can apply real life examples instead of just saying like, oh, I heard this, I saw this, like I've experienced this. And that would attract people to our podcast, which would help, I believe.
I definitely like what you're saying about having experience in something that we're talking about. And in lifestyle, which I really like. I like that idea that we're exploring here.
Yeah.
It's difficult to pin down what lifestyle is, though. Because if we're trying to find a niche and then the niche is lifestyle, that's finding like the least specific niche.
Well, maybe it needs to be in that sort of format, and like maybe month to month we work on like a specific one.
This is mental health month. This is fitness month.
Is that what well, I'd say health would encompass like fitness, diet, mental state, and I think education could also encompass a little bit of like have mental state and like some of the things that impact that. Last month when we talked about working out, and how that's like helpful for your mind and like kind of take some of the stress away. This can also be used in like school, blah blah blah. And then like if they're thinking about like what exactly are they talking about, they go back to like last month's episodes where we talk about that sort of thing. And so we're covering more subjects. We're covering like a broader spectrum here, but we're also we have some sort of rigidity to like the format that we're in. We're not just each week is something completely new. It's like little mini series, right? We have like 3 or 4 episodes a month. We could make it more potentially if they were shorter. We could talk about several different topics. We can make one longer video, cut it up. It really depends what we want to do. But then like month to month, we have a specific niche we focus on, but overall it's lifestyle. And we can come back at the end of the year, discuss all the topics we've talked about, like a longer video, or like maybe it's every half year, every 3 months, right? Like we pick 3 niches that go together, like, and then we do that over the next like 3 to 6 months, like something like that. We're covering a ton of topics. Once we have a lot of videos, people can go and find what they want, and then we're also, have a structure. I feel like that could work.
I feel like what you're saying is kind of a good idea. I like where you're going. It sounds like a little too rigid. Like the idea of mini-series. I like the idea of connecting our videos together, but like purposely planning out very rigid mini-series. I'm not too sure about that, but like we could definitely make an effort to tie in our videos together. But also, for the niche thing, you're saying like we're trying to find the most broad niche, and
It sounds like
I feel like that's what we kind of should be doing. It's a balance, because if we get too specific, we're just gonna run out of things to talk about, right? But if we get too broad, then we're gonna be a little distracted in what we talk about, right? So we need to find a balance. I think lifestyle is that balance, right?
Because sorry, you go first.
If you look at a lot of other channels and podcasts, they're not as specific as you're talking about. They encompass a lot of things that are they all tie in together, but it's a lot of different topics.
Like, how do you mean? Like what?
Well, I personally think lifestyle, like when you think of lifestyles like super broad, I think you're thinking of it too much. Like, we're not talking about all the like the geopolitics and like every brand new like archaeological and astronomical and subnautical, I don't know what underwater is called. Fine, we might bring up like, oh yeah, blah 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 blah, that's cool, I heard about this, that kind of ties into that, I wonder what this will become, something like that. Maybe if they find something new, like we're talking about fitness, they find like some way that like the muscle fibers, we bring that up, like, oh, it's a brand new finding, then we're talking about like the news and like stuff, but mostly we're just going to be talking about like our little world, like our smaller thing, and it seems massive to us. It does. Like, I'm not going to say like your whole life is your whole life, right? But your whole life is just a little tiny bit of everybody else's. If you think about it, like overall, we're still operating in like a nice little zone. But what you see as little is losing a lot of. Well, I'm not saying you're losing the audience. I'm sorry. I'm saying like if we focus on like a small area inside of our small area, I feel like we're only going to be hitting like a very small area of like people that want to watch.
I definitely agree with what he's saying. It's like, just because we're calling our niche lifestyle doesn't mean we're going to go over everything that everybody thinks of when they hear lifestyle. Right? Yeah, that's what I had.
Well, I agree. When you were talking about other podcasts, that like, what do you mean by that? Like,
I was just more thinking about YouTube channels, but like, like they definitely have their overall topic, but they don't stick to just one thing.
And I don't want to be that guy to bring up Joe Rogan all the time.
No, I was about to bring up.
Yeah, obviously, because like if you think about
the just interviewing,
it's interviewing people, but because he interviews people, he talks about everything, and we don't have the facilities to interview people.
We don't.
People worthwhile. To be like, there's a couple of people.
Okay, anyways.
I'm not talking about anyone specific. If you think I'm talking about you, I'm not. If you don't know who you are because you don't watch the videos, don't worry about it. But I'm just saying, like, I feel like our quality of, like, interviews would not be great. But I think to still cover a wide spectrum of, like, topics, we need, like, broad niche.
Interesting. But I look at people... Do you know Andrew Huberman?
Oh, yes, I'm aware of him.
Okay, Andrew Huberman, he talks about all things health, right?
Right.
Which is sort of similar if we were to talk about stuff like lifestyle, but it's I hate using this word so much. It's nicher. It's like more specific. And you look at people like Michael Smoke from Higher Up Wellness. Do you know him? He's good. You should look at Higher Up Wellness, and he is all health again. And then you look at people like Alex Hormozy. He's a little bit of health, almost all business. And I just feel like we're so close with lifestyle here. We're so close. We just need to limit it a little bit more. Like, need to specify exactly like what more we'll be talking about.
Right.
But I feel like those people that you're mentioning, they probably have a lot of expertise in what they're talking about. We don't have as much expertise in anything, so we need to broaden it out a little bit. Because like, if we were like professional health scientists, we would have a lot to talk about.
That's a good point.
But we're not making a career here. We're not, or this isn't like going to be like everything. Mm-hmm. And I'm not saying it's their everything, but their podcast, like you're talking about Andrew Huberman, it really ties in with his like actual career, and so I feel like it makes it so much easier. Because then he's like I'm just saying, like our whole world, like his whole world. I'm not saying it's the entire world, obviously, but like a big portion of it's going to be like the career, knowing about that stuff, which makes his niche almost as big as our lifestyle one. Like if you think, it's about perspective. Like when if you've been stuck in this house your entire life, you're like, dude, this house is huge. I only want to show somebody my room because I don't want to overwhelm them. You step outside and you're like, maybe not. I know. I'm not trying to lie.
No, it's good. I know what you're talking.
I'm not trying to like downplay your points here, but I don't know.
It's a good.
I feel like
good conversation.
We're all using different words, but I think that we're coming to an agreement, right?
We're getting closer.
We like lifestyle, and we're slowly.
We're
slowly getting you to agree that lifestyle isn't as broad as it thinks.
No, I'm just saying we have to narrow exactly what we're talking about down. But what you were saying about Andrew Huberman, like he has a PhD. He's a professor at Stanford.
Yes.
And that's big. But there's two kinds of people that people like listen to, right? Or like not take advice to, but like actually like
right.
You either already know it or you follow someone learning it, which I find it really fascinating to watch someone learn something. Like with fitness, you watch us progress. You watch us hit new PRs or hit like body fat, weight goals, and things like that, and learn new knowledge and present it, because we're presenting it to the audience, presenting what we learn, what we already know, our opinions on it.
Well, I feel like that's completely doable with lifestyle. I think we could do fitness, but I think we could also, like, we come in here and we're like, oh yeah, we're learning X, Y, and Z. This affects us in, these ways. It doesn't necessarily have to be that. I think we can still present that format to our audience, but have a broader spectrum to talk about. Because fitness is such a, like, I'm not saying it comparatively, when, like, you look at everything else, fitness is a little part of our lives. And there's a bunch of other little parts of our lives that we could do similar things with. And I feel like just limiting it to that, like, I'm not saying we wouldn't have things to talk about. I think it might get dry after a while because, not because there's not a lot to talk about there, but just because, like, with our experience and, like, the amount of, different things we do and variety, like, I only have time to work out, like, 3 times a week, right? And so I'm not making a ton of progress all the time, whereas if somebody, like, their whole thing, they were out of school, and then, like, like Sam Solik, he's in school, don't get me wrong, he's doing college, but, like, his other thing is working out, he's doing that every single, it's his job, which makes it a lot easier, but to do that, in my opinion.
Actually, it's a good point, go ahead.
I think we've been talking about a lot about, like, what's going to be easy, what's going to be a little harder, but also just, like, what's going to be interesting for us, what's going to be boring. Like, if we limit ourselves to fitness, but then we have, like, this big life experience in, say, the financial world, then we don't really have an opportunity to talk about it here. Whereas if we just have it, like, lifestyle, encompassing health, fitness, financial, education, all that kind of stuff, then we have the opportunity to talk about more things.
I would agree with him, because I feel like our last episode was kind of like, it should have been part of the episode before it, and it felt like kind of hard to talk about, because I felt like some of the points I wanted to tie in, and, like, I didn't have anywhere to, like, go and, like, transition while I thought about other stuff, because we had already covered it, and we were trying to, like, compartmentalize and separate them so much. Or that might not have been what you're doing. I just felt the reason it wasn't very good was because of that.
Interesting. Well, okay. Because I'm thinking, just broadly.
Yes.
Do you think a person, a YouTube channel, a podcast can grow more audience with a broader or a more specific niche?
I think. Sorry.
I definitely agree with you there. A lot of, I guess not a lot of, but one of the big channels that I personally watch, he did a video about what he did to get his channel where it is and what somebody else should do. That was his big thing. You gotta pick something that nobody else is doing and find your niche. But I just think that lifestyle is a niche, right? Because especially since we're all in a very transitional age where we're moving into, I guess, the adult real world, however you want to put it.
Right.
So we're going to have a lot of experiences to talk about.
I completely agree with that. I think we can all agree that, like, with that. And I think part of the thing, like, you posed the question, like, is it easier to grow an audience when, like, focusing on a big thing or a little thing? And I think with this, it would create more audience the longer we go. Like, I know that's true for anything, but, like, it's like exponential growth is what I'm trying to say. Like, in math, like we've recently learned, which I don't want to talk about math here, but, like, Right, so you start off small and then like obviously it's not that extreme, it's like on a larger point, but you get the idea. Because once somebody finds our channel, maybe they only like the fitness portion of it, right? Fair enough. Then they have all the other videos they can go back on, right? But maybe somebody finds our channel and they only like, when we talk about economic stuff, and they can go back on that and they can say, oh, this month, like, I'm not saying we do the month thing necessarily, like this month or this string of episodes, like, we can put them in different sections, like they have those playlist things where it's like, oh, these ones are economical, these ones are mostly about fitness, these ones are mostly about our education. And then people that want those specific things can go to that, and then people that like our personalities, which is what I think we mainly have to offer these people is our personalities and experiences, not a specific topic, can watch all of it if they want to.
Now going back to some other channels that I watch personally, I feel, because once they started off with a niche, and once they had an audience, their audience stuck around as they completely changed their channel, and technically it was the same niche, but it was he started running his channel completely differently, but that he had a good foundational audience.
Right.
So I'm not saying like we should, but we can always expand or narrow or we can adapt in the future.
And I think at that point it is about the personnel. That's what you have to offer,
Yes.
right? That's the difference between us. You were talking about earlier, like, what do we have to like offer the audience? Maybe not in those words, but that's like the gist I got of it. And I think what we have to offer the audience. It's our experiences. I know I'm sounding redundant at this point, but I just kind of want to hammer it home that like we don't need to offer them some magical piece of like advice or like a scientific study that we created, because we didn't, and they're going to be able to find everything we have to offer somebody else except for our personal experiences. I think it's the only thing we have to give them that's completely unique.
That's a good point. And if you think about it, our podcast is a brand, and our brand is ourselves. We are our brand.
Mm-hmm.
And really, if we want to build an audience, they have to like us.
Yes.
We have to make them, and unless we do, I mean, I guess, interesting.
How about, I feel like we're at a really good point. Why don't we break for a minute, go take care of the stuff we have upstairs, and we'll get back to this in a little bit.
Great.
Okay, so we'll go back to our discussion.
Great.
We are about to transition into talking about, as I was referring to as our special thing, and we had a bit of a conversation off camera. So I'll let Ezra explain kind of like what he was thinking there.
Right, so basically, this morning, I came to school, and I was thinking, you know what we need to do for our podcast? We need a special thing. A unique thing that puts us in the spotlight. It makes us stand out from anybody else. I had a few ideas. I thought, I don't know, we could run while we're doing the podcast. Or, like, we could run a mile before doing the podcast. Or we could do, like, 100 push-ups. Or just something special or impressive that we can do that will make us stand out.
I definitely agree with you that we need something like that, but what I think is that it would make the whole podcast just feel too scripted if we came up with that special thing in advance and planned it all out. But if we just kind of if we just go with what we have and allow our quote-unquote special thing to just naturally develop, I think that would be better.
But I don't think we would ever develop something like that. That would be like very standout-ish with just letting things develop.
I think we would, because just over time, because think about it, all those big all those famous TV shows, radio shows, whatever, a lot of their trademarks that everybody still remembers even after the shows end. Those things weren't necessarily scripted. They're just something that just happened to happen. It just happened to happen a couple times, and they liked it, and then made it a thing.
I hate to do this because this is mean, but can you name an example? Because I'm thinking all the shows I can think of, they start with a premise like that. That's their special thing. I don't know why the only thing I can think of is
But shows
to catch a predator.
But those
Right.
shows
They
are
didn't just
scripted.
coincidentally catch a predator.
But they are scripted, and what we're trying to avoid is being completely scripted.
Well, what do you mean
okay.
they are scripted? They have a premise that, like Survivor, I guess you can say that it's scripted.
It's pretty scripted.
It's pretty...
Now-
Okay, but let's say, hypothetically, like a show like Survivor, or something else that has a thing, like a structure that they do, and then they let, obviously, conversations like that happen in between. Go ahead.
So I guess more if I'm saying, I can name a couple shows as examples, but I couldn't name the specific thing that
Okay.
they all have. But not the premise of the show. Like obviously that was planned out in advance, but like a lot of the main characters, they have like a line that they always say. I guess a good example would be like if you've seen Family Matters. It's an old show, but Steve Urkel. He has that famous line, "Did I do that?" Now that might have been scripted, but it probably wasn't meant to be like a whole big thing, right?
Right.
And it just became like if you think of that character, you think of that line, because he just did it really well the first time, and then it just became his thing.
I guess I like what you're saying there. Where I got the like running thing is there's this guy, and he runs a mile every day while talking, so sort of like that, and then but that didn't just like happen because he happened to do that, and then it blew up. It happened because he had that idea, and then he did it. And
What?
just because you have a unique idea and then you do it, even if you do it over and over again, that doesn't mean it's not unique or special or your thing.
I think we're talking about two.
I don't think-
I think we're talking about two different things.
I don't think Clint's trying to say that creating it would make it like less unique or special. It's like we can have something that like we create, manufacture that's like unique and special. But I think it would be more organic and more beneficial if we had one that naturally came up, because right, if we just had like what would our thing be? What would our like one thing be? Like just throw out some ideas here, because I heard the 100 push-ups. Like how would that benefit us in like every episode we do? Are we only gonna do fitness? Like, is it?
Maybe we only do fitness. Maybe it's just like a feat of. Go ahead.
I feel like me and Ezra kind of talking about two different things, right? Where the guy that you're talking about, where he talks as he runs, he probably had that idea and started doing it, kind of like how we had the idea to do this podcast and started doing it. Where that's not really what we're trying to do.
Our idea
We're
was the podcast. His idea was
running.
talking while running.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. We're trying to add something to this to make it special. Kind of like one of those characters' lines, right?
I guess I see what you're saying, but I'm saying I don't understand why the thing like it's. I'm not saying we have to reinvent our podcast. We have to do it completely different, but I don't understand why we can't morph it or add something.
No, we're definitely trying to add something here, but I feel like you're trying to take it. Not you specifically. Well, obviously you specifically. But also, I don't know. I just feel like if we take it into like an extreme direction, then it'd be harder to like move it out of something or into something new or like a different phase if we wanted to. Because if we made our own thing, like, oh yeah, we're the guys who do 100 push-ups before each episode, which obviously I'm not exactly like something similar to that. Or we run while we do our episodes, something like that. Then we try to like transition slightly into like instead of running, instead of doing our push-ups, we're gonna do like something else. I feel like that'd be harder than if we were like lifestyles our thing. We talk about all this stuff. Okay, now we're gonna go into like talking about economics more. I feel like that's like an easier transition.
Yeah.
We already have parts of that.
I see what you're saying. Okay, go ahead.
So I think. Let me try rewording what I've been saying. We don't. I'm not against adding something to the podcast. I just think that we shouldn't, like really push whatever it is on there. Like we come up with an idea, we try it once, and if everybody likes it, then we try it again, and then maybe we try a different idea, and it just eventually will more organically find what is our thing.
I guess that makes sense. And Dewey, what you were saying about it would be an easier transition. It would be an easier transition, but I guess I'm not going for like the easiest thing. I'm going for like what would be the most interesting to
I
the people.
think this lifestyle idea, I think it would be interesting to people because, like I was saying before, like we are what we have to offer to the audience, and so like, why would we need some sort of like I don't want to call it a gimmick, but like if it's a gimmick,
it's pretty much a gimmick.
Yeah, a gimmick, right? Like that's a gimmick. Doing the push-ups, you know, right? Like you can talk about, oh, I did this many push-ups today. I ran this bar. I did this. I did that. Like, oh, I got this new drill move down. I passed this test. Like we don't need to like every single time do the exact same thing. I feel like it'd be better if because of our personalities we had reoccurring themes and things that came up. Like that could be our thing, right? How many other people are having a podcast, set in, our timeline where we're like, late teens or going to be like adults soon, right? Where, we have somebody who is like really comfortable in the auto mechanic space for his age. We have somebody who's really comfortable like talking in front of people and like with public presentations and leadership and like a bunch of, background in agriculture, and that has somebody like we have so much stuff to offer that I feel like limiting it to one of these things that like we're all kind of good at is taking away from all the things that we're like individually super good at, like relatively speaking, obviously.
So now this is a good conversation, but I feel like we're talking about different things, right? I still don't quite get what Ezra's trying to say, but you're definitely talking about the topics we would cover. And
I think what he's saying though. Okay.
You're talking about like topics we would cover and like content we would do, and then I'm kind of talking about like something that wouldn't take the whole episode, just something that makes our podcast unique, right? I think Ezra's somewhere in between.
What I'm trying to say is unique is our like experiences, and we don't need like some other thing that's unique.
Well, yeah, that. I kind of agree with you, but like...
Yes.
Well, think about this morning when I brought up something special. You were talking about the podcast that you listen to, the car, like the commute thing. They talk on their commute. It's like not necessarily the entire thing because they still talk, but...
Right. Well...
We talk in the basement. Can we be the talk in the basement guys?
Alright. Well, when you brought up that word gimmick, that actually kind of made it make more sense to me. What I was saying, right? Going back to those TV shows that I was mentioning, their whole premise was scripted and I guess manufactured beforehand. But what made those TV shows special and what made people want to watch them again was just like things that just happened, the little character gimmicks that developed throughout the show.
Well, I believe that the reason people want to watch the show again is obviously it's because of all those things combined together, creating like a personality you can relate to with some of the characters.
But
making them entertaining to watch.
Yeah, we're not making a TV show. We're not going to get into all of that.
But we have entertaining lives, relatively speaking. Right. So why can't we share those with the other people, creating a reason for them to watch and to like relate to us? Oh man, like imagine. I'm not just pretend we are a TV show. We go about our daily lives, and like kids every day come to watch us, and then like Schmuckatellia is over there, and he's like, wow. Clint's such a cool character. I race, he races, he does all these other things. Man, I wish I could, be like him. He's like a little 8-year-old, right? We want people to watch us and be like, oh man, I can really relate with Ezra where he's working out all these times, he's having these little struggles. I am too, but he just stays motivated, so I want to say more. So then they relate, they make that connection, they tell their friends, we get viewership. And I'm not saying viewership's the most important thing, but kind of is, because that's the goal, is to get people watching us. Yeah. Too.
So I feel like even though we're all kind of still saying different things,
I think we're in the same ballpark.
Like we all agree that at this moment we don't need to change anything. We just
I don't. No.
You're misunderstanding. Right. We changed that stuff that we were talking about earlier, but as far as like finding a unique thing, we don't need to add anything in right now. We just need to continue on this track that we've been discussing throughout the rest of the...
Look at him, not me when you talk. I'm not the one that's like completely disagreeing.
Right. For this very last, most recent conversation we had, at least what I'm understanding is that we all agree we don't really need to add anything right now. What our special thing is what we already have, we have those topics that we discussed about earlier. So what I understand is we just need to continue on what we're doing right now, and we're good.
Pause. Hold on. Wait a minute. Not pause there. Pause here. What if? Hold on.
Okay.
Here we go.
I'm hearing you.
This episode. This feels like a good episode, no? Right?
Yeah.
Right. Are we're all happy with how this episode is turning out so far. Correct.
Mhm.
Our topic for this episode was, like improving episode, talking about our niche and stuff. Delete that topic. Insert random topic. Same format, same conversation. Would this be something that you as an outside viewer would be interested in watching?
Almost.
For a couple episodes, then I give up.
Why would you give up after a couple episodes?
It would get boring.
How would it get boring if they're talking about different things?
They're talking about. I just don't think I would be interested. I don't think I would watch a couple episodes and then I would be like, okay, that's all I got from this person. I see that. Oh, that's a difficult question.
Yeah, it's because
Okay.
if we're covering all these different topics and there's different in our experiences and you're watching it, how are you going to get bored unless you don't like our personalities, which can't happen. If you don't like the person talking, obviously, I'm sure somebody is watching right now that hates my voice and they're not going to watch it. But somebody else is watching right now that likes, what I'm saying, and likes what you're saying, and all these ideas clashing, and these different experiences these different ideas that were created from past experiences that we've had, which is what we have to offer them, in my, the way I think about it, we can talk about so much stuff, we can get into so many different details and bring this exact same kind of energy, this exact same kind of, motivation for talking about it, we want to give them something nice, to watch and entertain, but we're also bringing our experiences in. I think this is kind of what we need to go for.
Yeah, I think we stick with this at least for a while, and eventually, if this isn't what we're going for, I think if we stick with this, it would develop into something different if it needed to. I think we're in a good place where if it needed to be something different, it would become something different.
Okay, that's a good point. And it would,
I think trying this for a couple of episodes and just feeling it out could definitely be beneficial.
maybe we should focus on the quality of the videos and then
I'd consider this a quality production for what it is.
It is, yeah. I mean, I'm not,
Yeah.
but
This
we can
one
always
was-
make
Now,
micro
there was-
improvements.
There's a couple of things that I was mentally noting about this episode that I want to make sure we address before the next one. More technical stuff, but I definitely like this episode. And you asked if I would enjoy this as a viewer, and I feel like this is more of something I would listen to while, say, driving.
Yes.
It's definitely.
It's still
It would be
enjoying
really boring just to sit down and watch this.
Well, most podcasts are listened to while doing something else.
Yeah.
I wonder what the chances, what our likeliness is of growing an audience when, with just our personalities. Of course, we have value. We have value in what we're saying, but I wonder what the chances are of us growing an audience, which isn't our first priority. I mean, maybe it's our first priority. Point is, what are the chances of us growing an audience and building a following with our with our personalities versus having strong value in what we're saying, trumping our personalities.
But what if we do need strong value in what we're saying? We can have that. Why don't we take the best of both worlds? What do people like watching? They like watching conflict and resolution, which is what we are having right now. We are having a debate, kind of, about what we want to do with this. And this, for me, would be entertaining to watch. Now, I'm not saying it'd be entertaining for everybody, or listen to at least, right? Maybe if they're more theatrics, I'd enjoy watching it more. But I'm not saying we should do more theatrics. I'm not gonna start doing, jumping jacks in the corner. But what if we took a topic and we kind of almost took opposing sides, and I was like, X, Y, and Z is bad for you. I believe in this. You believe in that. Let's talk about this. Oh, this benefits. Oh, I never thought about it that way. We could also do things like that, which I feel like would make it more entertaining for people to watch.
If I could take what you just said and kind of summarize what we want to do right now, is this kind of setup that we've developed.
I do enjoy the setup. I'd like to talk about that.
We want to stick to kind of a lifestyle topic range.
For now.
Yeah.
Yes.
And
Narrow down
Yes.
we'll find it. Yeah, we'll settle.
I personally don't think we need to narrow down, but if it turns out that we do, then we can. But I think the show should just become talking about our experiences, which would lead into debates, which would lead into the conflict and resolution thing, right?
Yes.
I think all of our topics should be based on our experiences. And I also want to bring up, looking at how long we've been doing this for, I think for the last portion of the episode, we discussed about it earlier, background music, I think we should just try it out for the last couple minutes.
Yeah.
Great.
And you should let us know in the comments if the background music is distracting or if it's beneficial, because
we can also try a different volume.
Mhm.
I do want to talk about some technical stuff while we're on here too.
Alright.
Just to get it out of the way. We'll let him set the music up real quick.
One technical thing I wanted is our volume, our voices, it's not very consistent, so I think we need a mic closer to us than just the phone, because you're getting a little quiet sometimes. I don't know if the
Yeah,
microphone
if we have the
was picking
computer
it
here
up.
and the mic is set up here, I think that would
Yeah.
work really well.
I also, the lighting, because we have like every single light in the room right now.
Mm-hmm.
And we do have, the shadow cancel lights. Alright, trial and error. But I feel like playing around with the lighting a little bit more for a couple of episodes would be nice. I do like being out here better than being in there.
Yeah.
I almost kind of want to do a hybrid where like maybe if we had the table like just for purposes of filming this, we can move back afterwards, like a little bit further out, and over there maybe we bring like a chair over it too, so we have like two people on a couch, one on a chair, so like.
And these couches aren't going to be here for very long.
Oh, they
so
are.
then we
Okay.
can
Will there
bring
be
chairs.
Will there be new couches down here?
No, it's going to be a fitness room.
Oh, fitness room. Oh, we could do it. We could do
Well,
it. Something.
yeah, so we can play around with the layout. And your comments about the lights, at least in my opinion, the lighting, this lighting looks pretty good on the camera,
Okay.
but I'm noticing that it's kind of blinding me right now.
Yeah, I can't like look to the
Yeah,
left.
and
of
then,
the-
like,
I have to look
Why your
at you,
eyes-
I can't
I
look
light
past
bulbs.
you.
Yeah. It's hard to look past someone. Like if
Yeah.
you just I don't know.
So we'll play around with that kind of stuff off camera.
Definitely.
I guess the
Oh,
most
and-
important... Sorry, go ahead.
Just real quick, we forgot to mention, but after the break we did move the camera, so you should let us know in the comments which angle you liked better.
Like this is 2. The first one is 1.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We just forgot to mention that, but we did move the camera.
And again, the most important thing about this video is really in the people watching, comment, tell us what you would be most interested in us talking about, what you would be most interested in hearing, and tell us anything we can improve, always. Please feel free to comment or contact us directly.
And at least Ezra was, in particular, making a lot of comments about, like, would this be better, would this be better? I think everything that we discussed today gives us a really good baseline. I think we should stick with that and just let the statistics, as they come in episode after episode, let those answer those questions.
Like if we're seeing like nobody's watching any of our education style videos, we can maybe like let it go for like or ask people like are you interested in this and
Right.
see how that works out.
Great.
Now, I also don't think that an episode would be entirely devoted to education, right?
Yes,
Like,
obviously.
say I had a big experience applying to a college, then I come here and I talk about it, and we go into a whole education, I guess, conversation or whatever. But then you also had an experience, say, buying a new car, so you talk about that, and then we transition into economics, right? So
Yeah.
each episode doesn't have to be one thing. I really think it should be driven by our experiences.
Certainly. All right. Is there anything else you guys want to talk about?
I was thinking about the thumbnail. I think
Thumbnail.
Oh, the thumbnail.
after we finish filming, we should spend a little time working on the thumbnail, maybe
Yeah.
taking some photos.
I also think we need to work on the little intro.
Mm-hmm.
It's just weird. We have to figure it out.
Definitely.
I don't like what we have right now.
And we should look up a few.
We have plenty of
Some-
time to work on it
Yeah.
afterwards.
Oh yeah.
Look up some few different people's intros. Okay, great.
All right. So I think
So-
that's a pretty good place to end it off.
Yeah, we have some stuff to work on after.
All right.
We stop.
It's a good episode.
Great. Thank you for watching the Mostly Accurate podcast. Come back next time to see what's going on. Drop a like, drop a comment, tell us what we can do better, tell us what you like to hear. And thank you. See you next time.